Hi, Bala. Welcome again. So, Bala, I wanted to understand part of this training talks about cardiovascular training. So, I wanted to more understand related to this muscular part of the training and how actually we go about to understand more details so that we actually go towards a journey for a injury-free run. So, can you
Absolutely.
talk something details around that which will help the new runners as well as the existing runners also?
Totally, Rakesh. So important, right? We always talked about this: cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, mental strength. These are the 6 pillars of improvement that you're going to see right through the. And cardiovascular, we have talked a lot, and we'll continue to talk about it. That is the engine. That is most important. Without that, nothing happens. But we also know, we also know musculoskeletal running is a muscular activity and a bone activity, right? At the end of the day, if your muscles and bones don't sort of cooperate with you, of course injuries will happen, right? So runners, I hope this doesn't come as any surprise to you. The single biggest roadblock for any runners, especially long distance runners, from achieving his or her goal is not time, it's not how heavy you are, it's not how sick you are, or life circumstances, none of that. It is injury, period. Injury while training, I'm talking about. That is the single biggest roadblock for for you from completing your mission. That's a fact. And there is a stat that 85% of runners will face an injury one time or the other during their training. Are you with me still, Rakesh?
Yeah, I'm there.
So you went out, I just want to confirm.
Yeah.
So 85% of runners have injury. So that means we all are going to get injured. One point or the other, some injury, some small injury, big injury, but something that makes your run not comfortable. Okay. So for that means automatically 2 fundamental things we need to understand and solve for. One, understand what are all the muscles that are involved in running. It's important. Knowledge is power. First is understand what are all the muscles that are involved in running. Right. Second is to understand how to go about strengthening those muscles. Right. Third is to understand what are all the common injuries that are there, so that tomorrow you know what muscles to focus on, strengthen it, but you also know what are the possible injuries, so that early signs only you can cut it off, so that you don't wait for it to become really big and then you are in a bad shape, right? So I'm going to give you, I'm not a doctor. First thing, I'm just a plain vanilla coach, but I'm going to slowly, and I have so many doctors as runners, so I have to be careful here. I can't be like, throwing lot of things and then I'll get into big trouble. So I'm going to make it as common sense, laymanish language as possible, so that you understand the basic muscles that are key for our running. Once you understand it, we will talk about what is our plan for strengthening that. And then I'll also introduce to you some of the common running injuries around these muscle areas. Does that sound like a plan, buddy?
Yeah, that's good. Not understanding from a doctor's or a physician's perspective, but from a layman kind of a simplistic
coach perspective. Exactly.
Coach perspective.
So let me share my screen, Rakesh, if you allow me, just to showcase a couple of slides so it's easier for us to sort of understand it. So let me share my screen. Just let me know if you're able to see my screen. You can see my screen, right?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, I'll full screen it. Okay, you can see it in full screen right now?
Yeah, it's in the presentation mode now.
Yes. So let us see, let's start from the bottom part here, the key muscles I'm going to talk about. The first big one is tib posterior, tibialis posterior. You see this one? Are you seeing what I'm circling? This is the muscle at the small part of your leg. I'm going from your foot to back. This is a very important muscle. We'll talk about this some more. Tib posterior. The second muscle is a big muscle in your calf muscle called soleus, S-O-L-E-U-S. So tib posterior and soleus are 2 muscles in your calf muscle region that helps you to stabilize and drive your mobility forward. If these muscles are weak, you will have multitude of problems below these 2 muscles around the foot area, and we will talk about that. That is the first one I want you to remember. The second set of muscles are on the thighs. You see, that's why it's called a kinetic chain. The chain of muscles that helps you to propel forward and stabilize you. That's what is needed, and we'll discuss it a bit more. On the thighs, I just want you to focus on two muscles, Rectus femoris and Vastus medialis. These are two muscles. So Vastus medialis is, you see this one, which is
the inner one.
Yeah, the inner thigh just above your knee.
Yeah.
That is the Vastus medialis muscle, and Rectus femoris muscle is the huge thigh muscle on the front part. You see this one clearly. You can see this muscle drives again for running, very big muscle for running. Then comes the TFL. This is called a TFL, tensor fasciata. That's what is the name of the muscle. This muscle runs on the side of this, it starts from the hip and goes on the side and connects to the knee. Okay, TFL muscle. This is another muscle that stabilizes your knee. Very interestingly, this Vastus medialis TFL stabilizes your knee. So tomorrow, if you have knee problem, then there is something going on with these two muscles. Another side of the story. Then if you look at your core muscles, psoas and iliacus, psoas and iliacus, these are muscles on the front part of your stomach area, which also helps in hip extension and hip contraction and abduction as well. And we'll talk about it a little bit later on. So these are the four muscles on the front, and on the back side is on the glute, the most important muscle, glute maximus, glute medius, glute minimus are the three muscles in glutes. Glute medius, the most important within the three muscles which are least strengthened, and we need to strengthen as a runner. Glute medius muscles, then of course the hamstrings and calves we talked about. Achilles, this is the Achilles tendon, big Achilles tendon that connects the elbow, the heel bone to the calf muscle. Okay, so if you think about it from here, tib posterior, soleus, vastus medialis, rectus femoris, TFL, psoas, and iliacus, three muscles of the glute, and then you have the hamstring, which is the back part of your leg, of your thighs, and then Achilles tendon. If you think about it, Rakesh, these are the muscles that stabilizes you when you're running and also powers you while running. Core part, kinetic chain, lower kinetic chain, upper middle kinetic chain. And then if you go to the next, if I go to the next slide, if I just wanted to show you one small thing on the next slide, you look at this IT band. A lot of people will hear IT band. You see this IT band here, this gray one. This is the iliotibial tract. This is another muscle that connects, if you look at it, some ligaments and muscles of your calf at the top part of it also connects the knee and then goes and connects to the buttock muscle. See, this is the various, glute medius and tensor fasciata muscles are all connected to the IT band. Very important. These are the issues that will create many different issues that I'm going to talk about. So these muscles, called as the kinetic chain muscles, needs to be strengthened. And when you strengthen it, you will be able to run better.
Right.
You do not strengthen it, Rakesh, then I'm going to tell you the 6 or 7 key issues that every runner typically has. Key, most common injuries. First one is plantar fasciitis. Now, plantar fasciitis is essentially, you see the foot here, there is something called as a covering called as a fascia, right at the bottom of your foot. It's a sort of some kind of a membrane. Think of it as something that covers and keeps all the muscles in place. When this fascia gets swollen, torn, extended beyond the plastic zone, it starts creating a lot of pain on the bottom portion of your foot, where the foot is landing, typically just before the heel on the bottom side. Especially in the morning when you wake up and you start walking towards your bathroom, you will see pain on the foot. That means, it's plantar fasciitis. Very, very common. Okay, that's the first big one. The second one is Achilles tendinopathy. This is another painful scenario where you look at this Achilles here, this Achilles plays, this gets injured, extended, swollen, all, some scar tissues, you name it, different things happen. As a result, you will see pain in the back portion of your heel. I have this, by the way, guys. And this also creates, every day in the morning when you wake up, you will find that this is all quite tight and it'll pain. And when you start running, it will not pain. But when you stop running and go and sit for some time, it'll start paining again. It'll be quite painful. Achilles tendinopathy. This happens on the back portion of your foot. That's the next big one. Then comes shin splits. Oh Lord, this is another painful injury, guys. So if you look at the leg, let's look at this. So this is the shin bone here. Shin bone is here. Shin split is pain around the shin bone. And we'll discuss it a little later. But shin splits is essentially in front part of your shin bone, the big bone on your calf muscle on the front side, on your calf on the front side, pain on both sides of the shin. And it's almost like splitting, the shin is splitting the pain. So probably that's why it's called shin splits. And that's another pretty common and very painful sort of injury. Then comes Patellofemoral Syndrome, PF. This is another very common one on the kneecap. You see, this is called as a patella, which is a kneecap. This vastus muscle, I told you, vastus medialis and the rectus muscle and the IT band, these are all the things that keeps this patella in place. If some of these muscles are weak, this patella goes around like, going in all direction, and it starts rubbing on the cartilage below the patella. And once it starts rubbing on the cartilage, it starts paining. Patellofemoral syndrome, painful knee syndrome. People think it's arthritis and that type of stuff. It's actually nothing. It's just these muscles not supporting the patella, and that patella causing random movement and injuring the cartilage behind the patella. That's really what the patellofemoral syndrome is. And then comes stress fracture. You all know what is stress fracture. You have a pain, you still continue to run, and that small bones, can't able to take the stress, and it just takes a crack or something. Then comes the IT band syndrome. I showed you the IT band here. This IT band, which is connected to the knee and the muscles, if this gets stretched or contracted properly, it will pull the knee in some direction, wrong direction, it will touch all the nerves around the knee, and hence you will have pain on the knee. IT band syndrome, very common. Stress fracture, I put stress fracture 2 times. And then finally blisters and sprains. So that's what I would say, Rakesh. I'll stop sharing for a second. I'll definitely share these 2 slides. But if you think about it, this key set of muscles from the foot, posterior tib, soleus on the calf muscle. You have, vastus medialis on the thighs, rectus femoris, the bigger thigh muscle, 3 glute muscles, psoas muscle on the front part of your core, and then you have the IT band, hamstrings, all of this put together, along with the upper shoulder and chest muscles. These are makes the kinetic chain of your body. Any one of this is weak, some other muscle will overcompensate, and then that will start paining. So you will think, oh, that is paining, so the issue is there. But in reality, the issue is the other side. Like how typically when the knee pains, everybody thinks there's a problem in the knee, but most of the times the problem is on the hips, various parts of the hip muscle, and so on and so forth. I hope it is not too detailed, like a medical detail, but still it is something that every runner should know, and we can begin to discuss this more.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Bala. Actually, this is quite insightful. And I think important thing is each of these strength exercise which you prescribe as part of the final surge, they are tied up for strengthening these muscles. So once you do those strength exercise, these muscles get more, I'll say, developed and I'll say strengthened. That will help the runners actually to have a comfortable run.
That is correct. So sorry, Rakesh. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So comfortable run, and you don't need to drag or push yourself just to cover that distance. So correct. That is very important.
That is so. The so what of all of this, Rakesh, is I don't want the runners to remember all these muscle names, right? That's why I just wanted to showcase to you very quickly. But I want you to know the existence of certain muscles for certain activity. You guys have to know that, right? If you know that, then you will start taking your strength exercise seriously, because these strength exercises are meant for certain specific muscles. If you don't, let's say I send you a strength exercise for improving the posterior tibialis muscle, okay? If you don't do this correctly, or not read the instruction and do it correctly, you are not strengthening the posterior tibialis muscle. As a result, 2 months later, 1 month later, you will have Achilles tendinopathy. Then if you go back to the root cause, you will realize that your posterior tib is weak, and why it was weak is you didn't do the exercises properly. That if you can understand, as a coach, I'm good enough for me. Then Meso 2 onwards, Rakesh, you know that we will introduce kinetic chain exercises. not just strength exercises. There will be a day of kinetic chain, lower chain, middle chain, upper chain. We'll keep doing this for about 8-9 weeks. You will soon realize that the entire kinetic chain is beginning to take the load. Suddenly your speed increases. Suddenly your effort reduces and speed increases. And you realize what the hell is happening? That is because all the muscles are getting strengthened.
Okay, yeah, that's really insightful, Bala. Thanks for sharing the details on the muscular.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Coach Rakesh. And I also wanted to say thank you for getting up early in the morning and doing this for benefit of all of us. It's a pleasure to have you as a coach, and let's continue the partnership forward.
Thanks, Bala.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye.